One of the biggest mistakes I see from beginner resellers when they are just starting out is poor photography. So in this video, I thought it might be useful for us to have a little look at some Vinted listings, and you can see what I mean in relation to photography. So let's get straight into it then. This first one is one that I've loaded up on screen already, and it's in relation to a Juicy Couture Y2K tracksuit. And there's a lot that's right about the image, but there's also a lot that's wrong as well. So the first point is to just point out the actual layout and the way in which the items have been laid out. It's wrinkled, it's poorly presented. There isn't really good lighting to effectively showcase the items, and it just presents poorly. I think everyone can agree in relation to that. What is working for the image is the flooring. So having a flat lay is a good idea when you're doing that, but just making sure you're doing that on good, clean flooring as opposed to a dirty floor, I hope is fairly obvious for people. And so if we just click through some of the other example photographs here. So again, they've taken a picture of the label, which is a good idea, and I would suggest that you do that. But you can see that actually it's not a straight on picture, and the image itself, it's blurred, which is important to make sure you're clean rather, before you go ahead and take some photographs. But taking a good, well lit photograph of the label is important to protect you from authenticity claims, but also to give buyer confidence. This is the whole point of photography, right? You are trying to convince a potential buyer into purchasing your items, and the slightest thing is enough to put people off. This is one of those things that would put a potential buyer off because you can't read that clearly. I can't tell you what that says on that label there. And a potential buyer is actually looking for any excuse to move on and go on to the next item. And it's the same here. Again, not really well presented. The clothing's actually scrunched. The label is slightly more visible, but that photograph just isn't great. If that was laid flat, the wrinkles were removed. Perhaps you half zipped the zip down and it was folded so that you can display the label clearly, would really help to sort of showcase that item. Also, having a ring light and just using that when you're taking your photographs as well will help ensure that it's really well lit. I think this person doesn't appreciate the importance of exposure on their camera as well. Making sure that the exposure setting is correct is going to mean that your camera is more sensitive to light and ultimately will give you better photographs. So that's just one of the things to play around with when you're taking your photographs with your listings. So there you go. There's another example of it again. That's a poor image. It's not doing that item any favors whatsoever. The item's actually well, it just looks like it's being tossed on the floor, to be honest. It's not a good picture at all. And what is even more shocking about this, and it's no offense to this person who's selling it, like I'm not looking to dig them out, but that's £62 tracksuit. I personally don't think that's achievable. Based on the way in which that item has been displayed, I just don't think it's good enough, to be honest. So yeah, let's keep it on photography. Let's look at the next one then. So the next one's a pair of Levi's 527 jeans. So there's a lot again that's going right for this particular listing. I like the flooring. I don't like the fact that it's dirty and you can see those spots. You can see cat hair. People are allergic to animal fur, they're not going to buy. Again, similar situation over here in relation to fur. Also, this panel, which looks like a kickboard or similar, has no place to be in that imagery. The lighting that comes across there just creates a bit of a problem. It detracts from the image overall, right? Far better to just bring that 1 foot down away from it, have the lighting even across the photograph, have a ring light like I've spoken about, and then present the jeans in a decent fashion. Now, they haven't been ironed, and that shows. You need to be able to raise your standards as high as you possibly can to attract buyers, but in doing so, you're going to be able to charge a better price. It's worth it in the long run to put the effort in. So if we just flick through the rest of these images, again, a similar story. So you'll see from jean sellers, they'll do a lot in relation to this crinkle method, and they'll sort of crinkle in around the knees, and it'll create a sort of a bowed effect, effectively, which actually looks visually distinctive. It looks good. I think it looks like someone's made the effort, and I think there's an attempt at that, but it's being poorly executed. And again, they look wrinkled, they look like they've spent time in a drawer or whatever. It's just not visually appealing. And then we've got the same problem here with the light coming in. Far better go a foot down and left in order to be able to showcase that item effectively. And again, so now we know that the crinkling is definitely deliberate and what they've tried to do, but it's just poor. It should be like quite tight crinkles. Hopefully you can see the mouse, but it is just over the knee area, and then the ankles are sort of pointed into towards each other. Good picture. The label, no problem with that. That's a well-lit image that does exactly what you need it to do. Not a problem here, showing the hem. You could go at that a different way. What I do have a problem with is the hair. It just shouldn't be there. Whatever you're photographing on has to be spotless, because buyers judge, and they are looking for a reason not to purchase from you. Don't give them it by having hair in the photograph. It's really simple. A better way to showcase this would have them both together. So one with the hem turned over so the buyer can see the inside, one with it just flat laid the way it is so they can see it from the inside and the outside across the two and get an impression of the overall condition without you having to take a load of photographs. And we're back to where we were with that one. Okay. £15, yeah, reasonable for a pair of jeans like that. Realistically, you could charge more, actually, with a little bit of effort. I think if you did some of the things that I've spoken about there, there's no problem taking that up to £20. Last one, completely different on the spectrum. This is a Burberry Jeff backpack. So straight away, that image looks visually appealing, right? The seller has taken the time to present that item as well as they possibly can. What it is missing is lighting. So you need a good bit of lighting coming from the left-hand side of this image, and that's on like 50% setting if you've got studio lighting. And then you want one that's coming from a 45-degree angle, and that can go up to as much as 80%. And just playing around with the settings. I'll find a link and I'll put it in the description so you can see the kind of studio lighting that I'm talking about. It doesn't have to be an expensive setup. It can actually be quite cheap and still do the job really effective for you. I like the acoustic boards. I've actually got them in my office myself, but I do think that they interfere sometimes with the item. And in this case, because of the stripes of the acoustic boards, it actually is affecting the quality of the image. I think that would be much more visually appealing on a plain white background. And when you see that this person's trying to charge £550 for this item, every effort, and I mean absolutely every effort, needs to be made to ensure that this is as the photographs in this listing are as visually appealing as possible. You don't have an issue with a dirty floor here. That's a nice clean carpet and it looks presentable. Considering the cost, I would iron the bag. I would. It sounds ridiculous, ironing bags that are going to be used as a dust bag, but you're trying to charge $580, and the suggestion is that this item is new with tags, which it's not because the tag's been removed. It needs to look absolutely perfect. I like the fact that there's a receipt there. It's encouraging, but buyers are still skeptical in relation to that because so many people have abused it in the past, whereby they've used AI to create fake receipts, and so now it doesn't necessarily mean as much as it once did. If we click through, there's actually a more detailed image of the receipt, which is good. Picked it up from Vista, and you've got the price there as well. So there's a lot there that offers encouragement to a potential buyer. That receipt looks legitimate, but unless you've got it in your hands, it's really difficult to judge. So you've got details of receipt there. No problem putting that in. The image is a little bit dark. It could be a little bit brighter. Again, using a ring light, playing around with the exposure will make that image pop a little bit better, which is what you ultimately want it to do. Have got a problem with this. This is a new with tags item. I get what they're trying to do is display the leather patch in the middle there. My problem is this little section of foam is sticking out. Could have been tucked in, and then you can see some of the dust that's attached itself to the bag. Just give it a wipe. For 585, it's got to be perfect. It has literally got to be perfect. They'll get away with it, but I'm talking about achieving the highest possible standards that they can from an item. They're trying to take a picture of the Burberry tag here. It hasn't been achieved. It's blurry. So that's a poor image. You can see that the camera's actually focusing just to the left of shot, and they needed to just tap this section here. Hopefully you can see the mouse, so that the camera got focused in on that. No problem taking photographs of details within one of your items. In fact, it's encouraging for buyers to see that sort of stuff. So I get what they're trying to do. It's just been poorly executed. And then we're back to the main one. So if you would like me to go ahead and do a review of your Vinted page, and you're happy for the video to be released online where I'm talking about it, bear in mind it could be critical. If that's something that you're interested in, just drop it in the comments, let me know, and I'll pick out a few at random.